Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we're looking at A Left-Handed History of the World by Ed Wright. This book is a collection of miniature biographies of various left-handed historical figures. For that reason, I felt that this book was pretty good for someone like me who doesn't really have any history background, but appreciates getting a varied array of historical biographical information. This book features subjects ranging from about 1,000 years ago till now. It's more of like a coffee table style book. Each chapter is only about 10 pages, some of which are full of pictures and artwork. That's another thing. This book is pretty good as an art book alone. It helps that many of the subjects in this book were artists, but I do want to point out that the editing was very good with this one. And besides art and history, this book obviously has this other layer to it. Every subject in this book is left handed. What the author does is, when mentioning some of the important factors surrounding these historical figures, he'll try to tie in some of the traits that he's laid down as left handed traits or qualities. For instance, he'll say that lefties are known to be hot tempered or iconoclastic. In fact, there's a list of traits that he uses, and he'll bring up these themes to try to link all the subjects in the book together. This is an interesting idea, but I felt that in many instances it felt like a bit of a stretch, as though the only way someone would ever interpret the characteristic that way is if they were trying to make it fit into this theme. For example, implying that some of the military strategies employed by Alexander, Julius Caesar, or Napoleon were examples of what he calls left handed thinking, as if their left handedness could explain why they made the choices they did and a right handed person wouldn't have done that. Maybe. I don't know. Again, it's an interesting idea, but the explanations were unconvincing to me. And I read this book with a special interest because I am, in fact, left handed. There were many times in this book that I felt as though I could relate with what the author was saying. But if we look at the book with in a more scientific way, a couple questions come to my mind. First of all, there's this very clear narrative in the book that left handed people are statistically overrepresented in important moments in history, but I'm not so sure. The percentage of lefties is said to be about 10%, but I bet I could think of enough important right handed people to offset the imbalance implied in this book. Secondly, the traits laid out in this book, if approached in the way that I approach information like this, again, even though I am left handed, I have to ask, wouldn't these traits apply to right handed people too? I'll list the traits that are commonly brought up for each of the chapters. We have hot tempered, solitary, iconoclastic, self taught, experimental, fantasist, lateral thinking, visual spatial ability, intuitive, and empathetic. But to be honest, though, I have taken both the Myers Briggs and the Big Five personality assessments, and these traits definitely do reflect the results of my personality tests. But I'm still aware of this glaring kind of horoscope effect where I don't think it would be too difficult for any person to be able to at least see some of these traits in them at some point. I'd be very curious to hear what you guys think about them, though. I do want to say again, though, that as a history book, I did get a lot out of this. It was fun to read about all the figures and feel like we were all part of this exclusive club or something. I should probably list out all the subjects in this book. From beginning to end, we have Ramses the Great, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Joan of Arc, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, Isaac Newton, Napoleon, Beethoven, though we're not 100% sure he was left handed, Queen Victoria, Lewis Carroll, Mark Twain, Frederick Nietzsche, Henry Ford, Mary Curie, Mahatma Gandhi, Charlie Chaplin, Babe Ruth, Alan Turing, Jimi Hendrix, Paul McCartney, Bill Gates, Martina Navratilova, John McEnroe, and then you have a chapter for the Presidential Lefty Club featuring Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama. If you're thinking, why didn't they include this person? Yeah, that's bound to happen. They can only have so many people in the book. It's only about 200 pages. Maybe they'll make a second edition. But I also got the impression that The author is pretty into sports, judging by the depth that he goes into when talking about the athletes in this book. So, what features might make somebody like this book? If you're if you like a little primer on history and you haven't already read a lot of it already, or if you're interested in art history, sports, or of course if you're just left-handed, I'd really like to hear what other left-handed people who have read this book think of it. I bought this book while trying to find anything I could on the subject. It seems like one of those subjects that's not so easy to find reliable information on. This book does include other information on left-handedness, like the possibility that it comes about as a result of testosterone exposure during fetal development, and the book includes many other statistics and traits about left-handed people, many of which are not so good, such as being more prone to schizophrenia and a shorter lifespan, etc. I flipped through this other book called Neuropsychology of Left-Handedness, and man, that book did not make me feel very lucky to be left-handed. But in actuality, it's been one of the things in my life that I've always been most grateful for, and there's quite a bit of it in my family. So it would be nice to find some more books that are maybe more science oriented. It would have been neat to hear more about left-handedness earlier in history and more information on genetics and physiology and stuff. Okay, that's it for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Put it in the comments if you're left-handed, because I'd really like to know. If you're not, I do still love you, and I hope you got something out of this video. I'm not sure what that might be. Hey, I just talk about the books I read. If you want to know more, check out A Left-Handed History of the World by Ed Wright.